diminished stockpiles. They are talking about Patriot and THAAD interceptors and also talking about Tomahawk missiles. So, on the one hand, New York Times, Washington Post, and the CNN is talking about that US is, if it continues the war, it is not in favor of United States, it's not in favor of the people. But Donald Trump doesn't seem to be hesitant on that, despite election is there, midterm election is there. One day he says that okay, we have completed our strikes. This time, the 13-day strike is over. 1 week strike is over. 1 day strike is over, and then they start striking again. So definitely they have some agenda that if they continue striking Iran, maybe there is uprising as you were talking about. Maybe there is some conflict. Even if you pick up the New York Times, they are repeatedly reporting that there is a rift between the hardliners and the parliamentarians. So still they hinge hope that some miracle happen and Iran surrenders. So how do you see this?
I mean, typically, always in a war, you try to create a rift within your enemy. So this is standard procedure, and also that you will proclaim and say things which aren't true, and that also is general for politics as well. And regarding here, the interesting point is that with the Ukraine war and then with the Gaza war, a great amount um, of military bombs and rockets and missiles, etc., were already used. And so I'm not sure if that was, especially in Gaza. So I'm not sure if that was the intention or if that was within the foresight of the strategy that they would use up their a lot of their material in the war. And the problem is that rebuilding or building them has a long timeline, especially with these are high technology products, but they don't have the mass production aspect behind them. So that's also regarding Europe and Russia. The difference between the equipment that's used is that Russia can produce them much faster than the high tech products produced in Europe. So as this is a war of military resources, like let's say one drone can and one rocket, how many rockets do you need how many Patriots do you need to take down a rocket? It's going to be 4, 5, 6 of them. So you need to produce 4, 5, 6 for one rocket, which might be the cost of 40,000, while each Patriot has a cost, I don't know, 2 million or 300, I think it's 400 or 600,000, something like that. So, and then how much time do you need to produce one rocket in regards to the Patriots? So this is where a lot of the material which is required for a defense strategy against the Iranian rocket strategy, because they don't have air power in the sense that they could fly to wherever the bases are. Right now, there's been an Iranian pilot was shot over Qatar, which shows actually that their fighter jets, they do not have this evasive technology to evade air defense so well. So it's really a rocket long distance or short distance and drone war against superior air power from the US. And so I think this is where the situation is going towards who can produce faster in this. And then you, of course, have certain budget limits on both sides. So Iran going in the direction of they having the challenge with exporting their main income source, which would be mainly gas and then oil. And the US will have the economic situation and inflation. And so when prices become more like higher and higher for the local population, you can expect that the population will show it in the next elections in September. And then you will also see that the population will become unhappy, economy will be affected, stocks will fall. So this is right now, everybody is on an edge situation.
So, do you think that since we mentioned the midterm election, Donald Trump's hope will come true that it can end the war that he thought that it will end in the weeks, or that was just a deception that he knew actually what really is going on. The ultimate purpose behind was to involve all the regions, and especially you mentioned Pakistan and Egypt, the most powerful military. But if we look at this situation and we move on to the next part, that is very important, how this is going to unfold for the businesses, for the companies, for the markets, because on the one hand they were okay, it seemed like that they had understood that they could do this from the other side, the Babul Mandip. But Babul Mandip has also been effective. Now they are also worried about that. What possible alternatives do you have in your mind, or the Saudis and the Gulf countries have in their mind, that they can choose to avert this?
So, like, it's a big challenging situation. So you do have mainly the Strait of Hormuz for large volume exports. Of course, you could drive per truck. You could still drive a truck to Turkey, Europe, or whatever you want to do. But a truck is limited to, let's say, 20, 27 tons at max. And so if you were to deliver oil to Europe to sell it, or gas or something like that to China, it wouldn't, and it's not feasible to do it by a truck. By airplane, obviously, also it's much more expensive. So the only way is shipping. And so in that respect, for the GCC countries, the landlocked ones, let's say Kuwait, Bahrain, they are in that predicament that only have they only have the Hormuz, although Kuwait does have access over the Iraq route to export. But the pipelines haven't really been finished. I think 28, 29, 27, we will be expecting some pipelines to be finished. So you have the east-west pipeline going to Yanbu in the Red Sea, which is being attacked by the Houthis in Yemen. And that has the obvious consequence that Saudi Arabia is making daily, I think it's 500 million daily missing on income. And seeing that oil and gas is the primary income source, and then you have the secondary products, let's say, which would be plastic, Sabic and Tasnia, and these are the major manufacturers, and they export around the world. But as just from the transportation side, it becomes a huge challenge to be able to export. So, for example, in plastics, certain plastics, Saudi Arabia isn't even exporting anymore because they require it for their local industry. Whereas in the past, they would you could still export them, and that is impacting, I would say, on several levels. The Saudi economy, which is the major one in the region. The Emirates has Fujairah. So Emirates left the OPEC, which means that they can produce more, which they need for their economy. So they do have Fujairah, but the problem is it has a weakness, because if it were to be attacked, and you just need to attack certain positions in a port in order to prevent export. So if you were just to, let's say, if you wanted to destroy the storage facilities, the oil storage facilities, and then how long does it take you to rebuild it? It's going to be 8 months, maybe 1 year, 1.5 years. So once they are destroyed, you don't have that capacity anymore for export. And the problem is that once you cannot export your production of oil, gas, or whatever derivatives there are, this affects, how much are you going to store? Let's say, how much plastic is Sabic going to store before they can export it? Because they have to store it and they can't export it at that time. So at what point in time do they stop producing? And let's say, at what point of time do you close an oil well? Because otherwise your whole system will get will break. You have to stop. So then how do you restart those oil wells down the line when you have a peaceful situation? So this whole thing is an integration of different wheels in a system. So when one wheel stops turning, a whole chain of other wheels stop turning also, and they have to stop in consequence. So it's a matter of time, I would say, to have all these consequences. So the longer this whole crisis goes, and if oil prices were to go higher, I mean, at the moment we have decreased, let's say, diesel production globally, because you have a lot of refineries, like you have refineries in the Middle East that have reduced production, in Russia that have reduced production. You have so this has an impact, like until they are rebuilt, and it takes like a year. So you can expect that we will be facing a certain shock time if it continues, right? At the moment, you have an oversupply, let's say, of oil in the market, so we can still manage some time, but you have the strategic reserves have gone considerably low to the minimum levels at some would assess. So at what point in time does the market recognize this situation and then goes into panic? So I think that's something which time is of the essence. And I think that's also playing into the strategy, I would say, whereby Iran would be playing on time, because obviously they are facing the US, which is the superpower in the world. So they can only I wouldn't use the word win, but they would, if you were to use it, you would say they would win with small needle picks, right? So, right. And the US is under time pressure because the longer the oil prices stay high, the more it impacts the global economy and its own. And so you would see, let's say, when the oil price went to $140, what was the reaction? Immediately reaction, because that was panic level, $140. So then just recently it went up to 105, and then the OPEC said, we're going to increase production. Then you had before that the Emirates saying we're leaving the OPEC, and the oil price fell down. So these are measures which are taken in order to convince the market that to bring the oil price down, because that's essential for the global economy. And so my assessment is that if this continues on a long time, you won't have any more of those measures that you can take. And then the oil price just continues going up and up and up, and etc. And at that point in time, we can expect a lot of domino stones going to fall onto each other.
You're very right, and same problem. Even Iran is facing the same problem. I mean, production problem and storage problem. So they let's see who blinks first.